Hello guys, my name is DearGStudios and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to review the most recent Big Finish release, and that was Out of Time. I've been really looking forward to this range. There's like a trilogy that they've done and it seems really exciting. It's David Tennant basically with another Doctor. So this one was with Tom Baker, but there is also Peter Davison and Conan Baker on the way. And this time they're against Daleks. They're in this place called the Cathedral of Contemplation, and it's basically like a gateway between times and everything. I have a dog that sees every single person walking past as some kind of threat. They're in this place called the Cathedral of Contemplation, and that is basically like a gateway between zones, time, and that leads to two Doctors being in the same place, and with a big bunch of Daleks on their way, including the Supreme Dalek from Series 4, they come in basically to storm the place in order to, continue and move on and invade everywhere else. I think that plot was vague enough for you to understand what it's about, but without actually knowing anything about the story. So the first thing that I really like about this 1 hour, I'm going to call it a special, 1 hour special, was that I feel like the dynamic between the two Doctors is really good. I think that they both have this kind of chemistry almost, like they're really well written, and I think David Tennant plays well along with the, kind of over the top Tom Baker as well, and I think that leads to some really nice interactions with the two of them, but their interactions don't seem forced or kind of gimmicky, like we're getting a lot of the same reactions. It feels very much like these are the reactions that these characters have. I feel like I need to explain that more. They didn't come across as like the gimmicky kind of like, you're me and I'm you, and it goes on a bit like that. It felt very natural, as if the Time Lord was just meeting himself normally. Now, I wouldn't say I got goosebumps, but I say that there was this kind of like punch air kind of moment during the episode, like at a few occasions. I think part of that is due to the writing. I think it's written extremely well. It's difficult because you've got Daleks, two Doctors. It's quite a big story and there's a lot of stuff happening, and a lot of it is not exactly like, it doesn't fit audio that well because you can't do audios that well with Daleks. I think they do a really good job here. I think that the second thing is the music. I think the musical score that they've done for this episode is great. I think it has this great kind of atmosphere. It's a bit like a superhero theme, which is something I quite like, and it feels quite epic, and it was quite nice to hear that throughout the the climax. And actually, not just the climax, there was a scene a bit earlier, about 15 minutes in, which is a really interesting way to introduce your villains, and most of the time it's just kind of they walk in, but I think that they did a great job with this one, and I think that they also used a great piece of music during that scene as well. You can't really go wrong with two Doctors and the Daleks. I think that it is just quite a fun story and it has a nice climax and a satisfying ending. It was definitely very interesting. I was really sad when it ended. Like, I've never really been a fan of listening to Big Finish in one go, or like, I don't listen to it on 2-speed, I have to listen to it on 1-speed as well. You do other tasks and things while you're listening to it, but this one was one of those ones that I really just kept walking around the house listening to, because I thought that was the best way to enjoy it. And there was a brief moment when I picked up the shredder and moved it into the living room, so I was shredding some of my old paperwork, and well, I jammed the shredder, by the way, but I decided just to leave it because I wanted to listen to this instead of, like properly listen to it with my full attention, because the pacing is really good. I think that without that, you'd lose interest. There's a lot of episodes, I think, of Big Finish that I have lost interest at some point, kind of in the middle, and I didn't really lose it in this one. I think that the whole thing is paced really well for it to be entertaining, the great dynamics and, the great scenes between characters and everything. There is also an awful lot of references, which I really enjoyed. There's one to Genesis of the Daleks about stopping a Dalek with a scarf, which I quite enjoyed, and I think that might have been accidental because it just seemed like a very strange thing, but there's a lot of references to Genesis of the Daleks. There's great ways that they've kind of fitted it into the timeline of the Doctors, which is not something I was expecting. For one Doctor it is in the middle of a really interesting run, and for another Doctor that's also in the middle of an interesting run. Some really interesting things to do with that they almost try and fit into the kind of arc, which I really enjoyed as well. By the arc, I'm referring mostly to David Tennant's side of the story, and I really like this kind of god complex that he's given, you know, a bit like in the specials. I think my only quite minor criticism for the whole thing was that I feel like Daleks aren't the best thing to use in audio. You know, they work well in the TV show because you've got these big tanks coming at you, and they, you know, they're great imagery and everything, but I think that with audio they have to be a little bit more explanatory, you have to do more exposition, and I think that sometimes that can make them come across as way more intelligent and kind of a lot less threatening if they're having to talk about what are their plans constantly, for the Doctors to, you know, for the audience to understand what's happening. But saying that, this is probably one of the best representations of the Daleks I think I've seen. They feel quite menacing, they're quite evil at times, and I think that's a really good thing for these Daleks. Like, when I listened to Class and that audio, I felt like the Dalek was just another regular villain, not really the big bad. The Daleks, the thing that the Doctor hates with all of his heart. In this episode, they feel a little bit more prominent, that's it. Okay guys, so I really enjoyed Out of Time 1. Hopefully Out of Time 2 will come quickly, but I think it's like June next year, so that might be a while. I do have the CD version of Out of Time coming soon, and I'm looking forward to adding that to my collection. It has some great artwork, so I really want to, you know, use that. But thank you guys very much for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure you give it a like, subscribe if you're new. There's a lot of Time Lord Victoria stuff coming over the next month, and I plan to get a couple of videos about that just before we enter, you know, September and it all starts. I don't know how many reviews I'm going to do for the actual thing while it's out, but we'll have to see. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I shall see you soon. Goodbye.